Airline forward bookings have been severely impacted owing to the Covid-19 pandemic. The International Air Transport Association, as at 9th March, said airline losses of about $113 billion will be recorded, with African airlines taking about a $4.4 billion loss. On this edition of the program, we examine the impact of these economic losses, even as Nigeria locks down totally on international flights. Welcome to Aviation This Week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi, and our flight is set for takeoff.
As the corona disease pandemic grips the world, the streets of London, which is usually busy with activities of commuters and tourists, is eerily quiet as the country fights the outbreak. Many office workers are now working from home. Schools are closed for most pupils. Pubs and theatres have been closed. With countries closing borders and airlines grounding aircraft, the city's tourist numbers have also diminished, leaving popular spots empty. Oxford Street, Europe's busiest street with 500,000 daily visitors, remains largely deserted. From London to Singapore. This time, Singapore Airlines has grounded most of its fleet amid the coronavirus challenge. The airline says it has cut its capacity by 96% and looks to raising funds. The move comes as global travel hub Singapore closed borders to travellers and transiting passengers in a bid to stem the spread of the virus. And now to Germany, as Lufthansa Airlines says the industry may not survive without state aid if the coronavirus pandemic lasts a long time. Like many of its rivals, Lufthansa has slashed flights, cut working hours and suspended its dividend to try to cope with the fallout from a crisis that has seen government-imposed draconian travel restrictions and bookings evaporate. The German group stopped short of requesting state loans, however, saying it was cutting costs where it can, so it can ride out a crisis that has forced it to ground 700 planes and slash passenger capacity by 95%.
We are having three different very important measures. We spoke about the cost reductions we're doing, which we are reducing cash out very dramatically. Secondly, we had one of the largest unencumbered fleet in the whole world to be able to go to the banks as collateral. And thirdly, there have been very strong statements from the German government that they will help with the liquidity in case there will be liquidity problems for German corporate life. So I think that will take care that Lufthansa will for sure be continuing after the corona crisis and actually be a winner.
Netherlands is our next stop, as flights cancellations brings Amsterdam Schiphol Airport to a near standstill. Passengers in protective gear are transferred through near-empty terminals. Please keep an appropriate distance. Europe's fourth largest flight hub, Schiphol, was almost deserted as cafes shut their doors and boards advertised dozens of flights as cancelled. Selected flights continue to operate from Schiphol as travellers scramble to return home and avoid global border closures over coronavirus. From Europe to Africa, specifically Senegal, foreign nationals packed the nation's Blaise Diagne airport on March the 20th to board the last international flight out before their total suspension to slow down the spread of the virus. Some of the passengers rushing home said they felt safer in Senegal and not looking forward to lockdown situations at home where the number of confirmed cases was much higher. Air France said that it was working closely with the French government to help repatriate French and European nationals abroad who might be stranded as a result of transport link closures prompted by the Covid-19.
It worries me more back in the States than it did here in Senegal. I feel like we lived in villages in Senegal and there was no coronavirus anywhere near us, and we're going back to a country that is, inundated with viruses, the virus. And so honestly, I felt more safe safe in Senegal than I think I will in America.
Back home in Nigeria, empty counters line the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos as Nigeria closed its air borders on Monday, the 23rd. Small businesses like eatery shops, pharmacies, bureau de change operators are badly hit. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority say the airports joined 3 others around the country and will be shut for a month. Before the closure, passengers were hurrying to leave the country.
I want to go and see my children. I go every 6 months, spend 6 months over there, come back, spend another 6 months, or less than 6 months, and I go back. I've been using my medication, the vitamin C, but that will prevent you from having the disease.
It has been very, very, let me say, disappointing, especially with the South African airline for cancelling the flight, all of a sudden, and we are left stranded here. For whatever reason, I feel they should have another means to actually look for a way out with this. It means my hours of traveling will be extended because now we have to quickly shuttle for another available flight. And now, instead of going on 6 hours flight, maybe 12 hours, we are still on the way. So I feel it's highly stressful and so disappointing.
An expert is concerned about the fate of domestic airlines.
The Federal Airport Authority and the airlines have taken care of all necessary procedures to keep us safe from the COVID-19 disease. But then the passengers are losing confidence. And as they're losing confidence, just like what has happened in Europe, airlines will begin to fly ghost flights. And once they begin to fly ghost flights, they now begin to cancel and eventually stop flying, which is something that we're going to get to if we continue. If all the states begin to shut down their schools, their companies and offices, then there'll be no reason to fly.
In Abuja, the airport is also deserted with no passengers in sight. Airline offices closed. Only top staff of the airport are working.
We are really in compliance in Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. As of yesterday, 23:50 hours, Turkish Airlines was the last international airline that departed out of Abuja with 180 passengers plus 3, with his crew. And we thank God everything was successful. We shut down the international, and all attention now is at the domestic airport. And as you can see, before the closure, we have provided sanitizers all over the terminal. Our staff are kitted with safety devices, the hand gloves and the facial masks. So we're in total compliance.
The airline industry worldwide is seeking state bailouts to absorb the shock from the pandemic, as widespread travel curbs have forced many to ground fleet and order thousands of workers on unpaid leave to keep afloat.
We experienced an influx of the COVID-19 into the country via the international airports. And I believe the federal government should be commended by closing the borders or closing these 5 international airports. But yes, the virus is already in the country and they came through the airports, so we have to live with it. So I don't think we should say it is late. I think we should look at containing it and making sure that it doesn't spread and we don't have communal infection spread. The IATA has predicted about $170 million loss in just the Nigerian aviation sector. I believe the figure might be more than that because the other industry or the other companies that support the aviation industry will also suffer the loss. So the loss is colossal. We have not seen anything like that. Yes, we had the experience of Ebola in 2014. We had the experience of the downturn in the economy of the world at that time. But this is totally a new dimension and it's uncharted territories. So if we are talking about over 100 billion loss in the aviation sector in Nigeria, I think it might be right. And this will affect other ancillary businesses, the handling companies, the catering companies, the fueling companies, a lot, the cleaning companies, a lot of industry, a lot of companies that support the aviation industry will suffer. Most importantly, we're going to also see job losses. IATA also predicted about 22,000 people might lose their jobs. We look at that as an alarming figure, but we have also seen how Ebola disrupted our operation and made a lot of airlines even go under completely, and some companies even have to send their staffs away. So we have seen that. But this COVID-19 is really something that we have not seen. And we have to, even the projection have to be looked at again, because the effect will be with us for a long period of time. And our prayer is that the government will come up and give the normal support that they usually do. But we appeal also the government should give a smart bailout this time, so that we can give bailout and the beneficiaries are those that really suffered the loss. Well, the local airlines are already struggling, and because they don't have the feed from the international carriers that bring in international passengers that we distribute around. And local travel has also reduced. Past a couple of weeks ago, we have seen a decline, a steady decline of passenger traffic to close to about 40, sometimes 50% low. So I think especially with the government, the federal government encouraging people to stay home and work from home, especially in these two big cities, Lagos and Abuja, and these are the places where we fly the most. We feel that the passenger traffic will continue to drop. And knowing fully well that, of course, the airports are vulnerable to this spread of the COVID-19. But there are a lot of measures that we take to make sure that the virus does not spread within the aviation industry. But I can see that the passengers will continue to drop, and that will affect the airlines because that is their source of revenue. So we can't put a figure to a loss that is continuous. You can't say that, I've lost X amount or X billions, because we're still studying and we're still looking at the impact. When Ebola happened in 2014, it was restricted to some part of the world, which is, of course, West Africa. But now this is a global pandemic, and the effect it's going to be really, really big, because if you look at the crude oil is down, the businesses around the aviation industry are suffering because the airlines are not flying in full capacity. So I believe if somebody says as of today we've lost over 150 billion, I will not argue with that. I think it's some figure that can be justified.
When Aviation This Week returns, Newsflash is next, with the International Air Transport Association saying that $252 billion loss is at stake for airlines this year. Do join us again.